It is official, whatever official. The Bitcoin ETF has been approved for all 11 companies. Hallelujah. We discuss it in detail on this show, but it has approved 10 years in the making. LFG. The best quote I saw on Twitter yesterday, he said, "What a crazy year today has been."
Welcome to Decentralized Dawn, where lifelong friends Chicago and Disco navigate the ever-evolving crypto landscape. With genuine curiosity and a commitment to nuance as our North Star, we offer clear-eyed exploration. Our goal? To empower listeners with the tools and insights needed to flourish in this decentralized age.
Well, here we go. Oh, my voice is scratchy today. It's a new year and a new us. This is Decentralized Dawn. I am Chicago. I might turn into Blue Toshi, but that's a story for another day. And on my right is Disco.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be back. I gotta say, I had some longing to get back into the saddle and get kind of things rolling again. And there's no lack of topics to cover or things to discuss. So I think we should be happy about that. And I don't know. I'm pumped for the year, and I'm pumped for today, and I'm excited to be back.
I share your enthusiasm, and I love our conversations, Disco. But I gotta say, I'm feeling a little salty today, and I don't know why. I just feel like with the ETF imminent, in fact, Bloomberg just said that all systems go. We're just, we're on the eve of when it's probably going to get announced after the markets close today. But I don't know. I'm feeling a bunch of mixed emotions today because I just feel like everybody infights internally and jockeys for position in the NFT world and all these little fiefdoms within crypto. And there's a bigger foe to fight, which is just like the regulation and all the BS that has been keeping this industry down for so long. So I'm sure me being salty makes for a better show, but I guess just prepared for me to lash out at a couple things, but not you, of course.
We may have more of a crankier Chicago today, but that's a very vital Chicago, so we're okay with that. I think that there's something there, though, on kind of these seminal kind of potential days or, things which will be milestones where, and also, getting back after, taking a little bit of an unplug and kind of seeing the space. And then, you could be hyper in tune or attuned for any of the kind of shilling and toxicity and, how some of that stuff's in there. And, being a part of this space and paying attention to it is like its own reality show and its own content and its own entertainment. And up till now, it's been of people that had fairly similar, at some point, there's some similarities in terms of their personas and their interests and their makeup and what drives them. And, people get the hook for all these reasons. And now it's kind of like we're on the eve of, having traditional finance guys getting into the space as well. And it really should be a time where more of the purists, kind of band together, because there is going to be a shifting in the landscape and of the people involved. And, you'd really hope or want, the folks that believe in decentralization, that ethos and, all that was so attractive about it. You'd really want that to kind of stay strong and to have people band together. And you don't like to see little infighting with crews and FUD and all that. So we have a bigger stage to be on, and you hope that there's some kind of understanding, respect, and loyalty for folks that, are kind of involved for a while and really understand the spirit of the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Decentralization is key, and just I think everyone's excited to make money and, to see number go up. Everyone loves number go up. And as much as people pretend that they don't, they do. We all do. Like we all get wealthier and we have more life decisions to make when number goes up. But it's just amazing. This bull market, we started this show only 3 months ago. I think we have like 13 or 14 under our belt now. And we were still, believe it or not, the end of the bear. Like we knew the bull was coming, but it came so fast. And I guess what I'm just shocked at, I shouldn't be, but it's just the amount. It's almost like all the degen and all the grift, like it was just queued up, ready to roll for that, you know. But before we go on, I do want to say, hit the subscribe button and like us, follow. We always say it at the end of the show, but you know what? With all this media consolidation in crypto and, you know, with all the kind of influencers and the cabal, and I say that jokingly, but you know, there's so many people who have interests who are pumping their own bags. I think Bankless has gone way downhill over the years. And like, this is independent media. We're stating how we feel. Just hit the like and subscribe and follow button. And just like, if you like what you hear, follow us, tell your friends about it. Like, let's keep independent media independent, and let's not let kind of these early Twitter influencers like control the narrative, because that narrative, it's, as we've seen with FOMO, it's so easy to jump in, and we're just jumping in late on someone's pump and dump bags. And I guess that's why I'm salty. I'm sick of the infighting, and I'm sick of the influencers.
Yeah, I think it's valid and fair. And, you know, I think there's one kind of side to the, you know, number go up that isn't necessarily related to the financial positives of number going up. And I think that it's a bit of a validation for sticking through and having belief that what you were paying attention to and dedicating your day and your time to learning more about and exploring, you know, the space and the ecosystem, you know, that there's a somewhat of a validation, like, see, this is real, and you know, there is something going on here. Yeah. So I think a lot of people, you know, want to like reach out if this gets approved, and you know, kind of talk to some of their family or, you know, some of their normie friends and be like, see, you know, this happened, because we always feel in our little echo chamber, because it's still such a small space as of right now, that, you know, everything's so widespread and understood and vital and everything. But then when you talk to other people, it's like not everybody, you know, had like January 10th circled as like this big day where this ETF might get approved. Right. Whereas for us, when that's all we see, you know, we think that's going on. So yes, obviously people will be happy to, you know, increase their net worth if things happen. But I do think there's also an element of just overall validation for their belief in the space.
Yeah, I mean, if you stuck around in this last bear market, a lot of people didn't, and you had conviction, like, I think it's going to pay off for all of us. I just saw a stat this morning that 90% of people holding Bitcoin right now are in the green, right? So 90% of the people who bought Bitcoin, it has only gone up for the most part in the last 4 or 5 months. So 90% are in the green now. And I guess the other 10%, unfortunately, bought and held right in the 50s and 60s a couple of years ago. But I guess for those people, I almost salute them more, like, good for you for like, yeah, you held. And, you know, I think it's going to pay off for you. I mean, I can't imagine, you know, if let's just assume the Bitcoin ETF by Gary and I mean, you can't make this shit up. I mean, truth is always 100% stranger than fiction. So as you all know, the SEC website got hacked, which is hilarious. I don't think Elon actually weighed in and said that they didn't have 2FA on their account. Good job, government. Gary, way to teach me about safety and security and not even have 2FA on there, you knucklehead. He probably had like a public telephone line, or, you know, he probably got SIM swapped or something. But they said it actually was compromised. So Elon provided us that because he can see IP addresses and stuff. He said it probably was a compromised account that did that. But it was announced yesterday that Bitcoin went live. It went from 45 to 47 within seconds. And then within minutes, it was proved to be fake from our friend Gary Gensler, that, you know, basically it was compromised and that it was unauthorized. And I think it just went out. I suspect it just went out a day early. And today, Wednesday, the 10th, after trading hours, which usually announcements get announced in Wall Street, that's when we're going to hear. And I think it's going to be affirmative.
I just think that it's legendary that it provided like a where were you moment, for
It
those
did.
of us that were paying attention. It was like, yes, no, what? And then everyone's scrambling, like, well, who knows what's happening? And it was like, but it was a total, like, you'll never shake that moment. So we're in the beginning of 24 and kind of the first real weekend, and the crypto space has not let us down for dramatic unscripted content, and I thought it was fascinating just to sit back and
the best quote I saw on Twitter yesterday, he said, what a crazy year today has been, and it's just like it's so true. Like this space, and it's funny, and you mentioned the normies earlier. I guess I'm at the phase now, like if people want to talk to me about it, I will, but it may be because you and I, we dump all of our thoughts and kind of research and deep dives into this show. Like I have no desire or need to scratch that itch with anybody outside unless they want to talk about it. I haven't had people approach me. I mean, people in my town and my softball team and in my little orbits know that I'm that person. And I haven't seen a lot of people come out, but in the next month for sure that they will. And I simply don't care. I feel bad for the normies because they're going to get in later, So I guess a question I would pose to you, Disco, is do you think that we saw it go to 47, right? So we can expect it to go to 47 right away. Like, do you think there's going to be a sell the news?
I think that anyone who is projecting either way is really, they can build their thesis on whatever it may be, but we're in uncharted territory. So I don't think that anybody really understands what's going to happen. If there was going to be a huge significant sell the news event, I think we would have seen more of an initial reaction that would have indicated that. But I just think that what people aren't factoring in enough is the people that have been involved and, had the bug and the bug enough to, acquire some and hold it and everything. Their reaction is not what a traditional finance folks would think it would be. Like I don't think people really understand that, like when you hold your Bitcoin or you own it, most of the people, have it off of the exchanges. They have no intention of getting rid of it. They look at it as a generational asset and something that, they couldn't believe selling. So even if it did go up to do X, Y, or Z, I think it's going to be a little shocking as this plays out, how many people are locked in and dug in on holding this for as long as, for years and years and years to come. So I don't think it fits like a traditional kind of IPO situation. I think that there's a different element due to the complexion of the people who own it. And then on top of the fact that you now have, 10 to 12 different operations that are waiting to be approved potentially, and you have that competition between them coming into play. Like, I don't know how that's all going to shake out in the short term. In the long term, it's incredibly bullish due to the fact that there's X amount available, due to the fact we have the halvening coming. Right. So all these different things are in place. But I just think projecting exactly how it's going to shake out is difficult because we don't know, if there's going to be battles between, BlackRock and Fidelity and what they're doing. You see that a bit with how they're lowering the fees right away. And I think like Kathy Woods doing 0 fee for the first year. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think a couple of them have like 6 months 0 fees. But I got to say, Disco, you're not taking a stand here. Come on.
You're looking for number go up or number go down? I think number go up.
I don't know. Or just what do you think? Short term, medium term? I don't know.
I've always thought that we'll be pumping way past the other high, and I think that we would be into 6 figures within 6 months.
Okay, that's fair. I 6
really
months.
Do.
Yeah, I think by 25 I could see that. Here's an interesting stat that doesn't, in the short term, doesn't necessarily support your whole thesis. The amount on the exchanges, I look back at a couple of shows ago, like a month ago,
Right.
it was 9.4%. Now on the exchanges, we have 9.7%. That doesn't sound like much, but it's actually 69,000 Bitcoin has poured into the exchanges. And again, maybe that's just like for short-term trading and stuff, but that's $3 billion that has come onto the exchanges. But, obviously even armchair quarterbacks and guys in their slippers and bathrobes who have no reason to be doing day trading are probably getting and be like, you know what, I'm gonna sell the news and I'm gonna buy right back in. I mean, who knows how people are gonna handle it, but I thought it was just interesting that more came on the exchanges. I'm kind of with you. I think there'll be a little bit of sell the news, or at least like it'll go up to 47, 48 or whatever. It may flatten out a little, might dip, and then I just see, because the question at the end of the day is, with all of these folks, how many, are people going to put their money into these Bitcoin ETFs? I know I am, so,
Right.
and, I'm just one little minnow out there, but, with institutions and companies are going to take longer, obviously. But I just think in the long term, like, this is just the beginning. And I think any insiders, it seems like, and obviously what you're saying, I think that's kind of the narrative, like, sure, up and down now, who cares? But it's going to go. It's just going to go. It has to. It's going to squeeze. It has to.
Well, it just ties into the whole culture of it, right? The fixed amount, and how so a fixed supply, it's just so counter to what we've seen in currency, from
Right.
printing money and everything like that, that I just think it's going to be just one of the most interesting things to watch how it gets rolled out. How, to your point, what the actual adoption is from the clientele, right? So how many people are going to be like, yes, I want to opt into that. And I think that people are going to be blown away by the interest and then the scarcity. And I do think that that will make number go up significantly, way more than what I said for the next, 6 months to year. But again, I've never looked at it as something to hold and flip, or something to flip and take advantage of. It's always been, I'm just glad I have a little bit, because I think it's going to be something that's going to be of significant value in ways I can't even imagine, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah, especially, obviously you are talking about Bitcoin, but especially Bitcoin, right? Because it's the first one to get the ETF. It was the first cryptocurrency, and, it's stood the test of time, and it's probably the most hardened of all of them. And now it's going to have its day in the sun, and all of us who
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, right. And if it, interestingly, I guess, if you'll role play, so let's say they play some game, and they already got sued, the SEC. I don't know what other, someone said there's like one other little trick they can pull out of their hat, but that seems very temporary to me. So it seems like a foregone conclusion. Like, everyone's registering, we already know everybody's I'm going to say handles, but I think they're called ticker symbols in the in the TradFi world. But like, so we know. So what I pulled up here is what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 companies. Reflexivity Research did a great chart just showing everybody's fees coming in. And as we all know, ETF have very low fees compared to mutual funds. That's why we love exchange traded funds, and you can trade them all day because they settle immediately. They don't have to settle at the end of the day like a mutual fund does. But look at Grayscale sitting at 1.5%. And I think their thing is like, hey, we already have the money. If we convert GBTC Trust over to an ETF, like, we might as well keep it higher at first. Let's see if there's a mass exodus, because we're getting so much money now. They're at least 2% now, if not with the carry and everything more. So, they've got the most to lose. I assume they'll come down quickly, but they're all over the place with 0.24 right now, with Bitwise being the bottom. So it's interesting. They all have Bitcoin, assuming the same, 1-to-1 ratio behind each one in the same way that they're holding it. And Coinbase is pretty much custodying all but a couple of them. So what's the only difference is the logo behind it and how maybe easy it is for you to get through your broker. But I don't know, any ones you're Do you know which one you're going to pick yet? I think I know which one I'm going to pick.
I don't know which one I'm going to pick yet. I mean, but it would probably be something, as you would say, that's the easiest stretch. So something that you may already have exposure to already, it's like if you're already kind of in that ecosystem, then,
Right.
and then do that. So I think that'll probably be how it plays out. But then you look at, there's going to be some battling between these guys, and they're not small players, and, they all want, to win. And you look at like a Van Eck that's really been focused on ETFs for a really long time, and you wonder if they might have, some inner working understandings. But then you keep hearing so much about BlackRock.
Well, and Van Eck has HODL too. I mean, that's a good choice.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was cool. But essentially the last couple of days, didn't it really come down to people revising, or these organizations revising their fees and submitting that and getting that all in place? So I do agree that it feels like it's at a button up, kind of getting everything just buttoned up and ready to roll. And that was probably a head fake, an unintentional head fake of a message that went out 24 hours early, potentially. Right. But there is a side of me that's like, and I don't know if it's, if there's a curse side in my mind or whatever, but like, what if it is a head fake, and what if he does rug? And that would just be it would just be just demoralizing. But by the same token, I'd still look at it as a potential opportunity to acquire more. So
I would, yeah. Because Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care about any of this stuff. Bitcoin just is, right? So this is just another vehicle for folks to get it. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes one of these to hold as many Bitcoin as Sailor. They may never get there, because the more 11 are fighting it out, and the more marketing they do, and the more people they get in, and the more investment money, the more the price of Bitcoin gets kind of logarithmically squeezed up. So, and the more Sailor's stuff is worth that he's already acquired. It's fairly genius,
that's a whole concept that I haven't addressed in my mind yet, which is we're going to potentially see the return to direct to consumer marketing around crypto. And, we saw the whole peak of it in that Super Bowl, and it was all the Matt Damons and, Larry Davids and anyone with the name, and the influencers with the with the Bored Apes on the Tonight Show and everything like that. So once they start coming back into the marketing sphere for this with this option, it'll just be really interesting to see how it's positioned, and ultimately who does the best job of really kind of proposing or explaining the value and the story behind it.
That's for you, or you're saying that should be the winner overall? I mean, you got to figure BlackRock, Van Eck and Fidelity have a huge advantage to getting the most out there. And Franklin's probably big too, Valkyrie, but I like Franklin. To me, it's just like that branding and Bitcoin just seem like, don't think I'm going to be, so I know which ones I'm going to cross out. I think I'm going to go with ARC 21 shares. I like Kathy Wood. I like what they do over there. She's always been cutting edge. She's got a fund that invests in SpaceX. Like she's just been ahead of her time. And, obviously when the market goes down a little in tech, she gets crushed, but when it goes up, she just goes up exponentially. But, at 0.25%, that seems fine to me. Like I'm not, but 0.25 versus 0.80 or 0.5, like, yeah, I'm going to save every fraction I can for Bitcoin. But, now with some of my retirement accounts that I have sitting in literally inflationary cash for the last couple of years, like I don't see a reason why a lot of that doesn't just go straight into this. Not financial advice, obviously, but I can't wait. That I actually called my brokerage yesterday, which isn't any of the ones listed here, but they're a big name. And I just said that they've been progressively very unprogressive, and have always been kind of like, Bitcoin's bad, it's scary. I had to get permission just to get GBTC a couple of years ago. And I said, if these are approved, will I have access to them? And she's like, let me check with my supervisor. Like 10 minutes later, she's like, yes, you will have access to them. I'm like, thank you. You will get to keep some of my accounts still. So, thank goodness I didn't have to move them over, but these will be available pretty much at every brokerage platform, which is great. Hallelujah. We should just do another show tomorrow. I mean, like,
I know,
you
I
know,
know, because this could be, yeah. We'll see how everything shakes out. And to your point, I do, like there are options already in place to do, Roth IRAs as crypto
right.
IRAs, and they go directly through Coinbase. So a lot of this stuff's already there if you're willing to do a little bit of the legwork. But this is really more of the play where people are just going to allocate percents of whatever they have towards this and be like, okay, I'm covered in the digital asset space at this point.
Well, and you can do it in just your brokerage account. You can do it in an IRA. You can do it in a
Yeah.
401ks. It depends on your carrier and what they offer you. But you have so many options now because it doesn't matter if it's behind tax deferred status or not. It's everywhere now. So this gives me way more options. And I think you're talking about through Coinbase, that's Alto, and they do cool stuff.
Alto,
But
right, yeah.
you also have to make under a certain amount of money a year to qualify for those. Like there's a lot of ifs, and this just opens it up to everybody. So I mean, I guess we could talk to this till the sun comes up, but it should be approved tonight. So we're all finally just sitting here, like it's sucked the oxygen out of the market as far as what the conversation is. It's been fun. I got to say, like you said yesterday, I was in a couple Discord groups and then chatting with you like, it's approved. And then literally 13 seconds later, I'm like, and it's not approved. Like,
I know.
It's just like the emotion is just insane. And I guess that's why I'm getting salty too. I'm just like, I guess I've been doing this long enough. I'm like, I'm tired of these waves. But then again, like you said, the next morning I'm like, want to go surfing?
It feels like one of those moments. The last one, or the only other one that I can liken it to in my experience in the space overall was, like the merge, like that took up all the conversation.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a Y2K, right? Like, is it going to work? What's going to happen? Da, 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 and then it's like, oh, it happened. It was fine. It was successful. And, obviously the results weren't a nothing burger, but the event was a bit of a nothing burger. And here we've had just so much buildup on this, and you're starting to hear it in, the traditional business media outlets from the CNBCs, and you hear them start talking about it, and you get a little giddy because you're like, oh gosh, this could really go down. And then just to get that head fake was just like, oh, come on, man, let's see what this next phase could look like. That being said, there may be some things to take, a little bit of data or information from the announcement when it happened yesterday, and seeing, so as you alluded to, we saw a price jump up, and granted, we're looking at like a 14-minute window before this whole thing kind of came back around, right? But you saw Bitcoin jump, I think, 48 up to 48 for a bit, and then normalize. But then one of the interesting sub stories that you can kind of look at is Ethereum had a nice little tick up, and that's been kind of the beleaguered token, if you want to look at it from that way, or from a narrative perspective, at least over the past 6 months. You haven't really heard that. But again, when you're kind of talking about people kind of waiting in the wings and being opportunistic and having their own strategy, it could be something to keep an eye on to see if this does kind of spring a little bit of movement from Ethereum from kind of where they've been or where it's been over the past 6 months or so.
Yeah, if Ethereum's seen finally, I mean, I feel like in December, Solana, really October, November, December, Solana goes from 20 to 120 and now down to, I don't know, 99, 100, whatever it's at now. And Ethereum just literally crabs from 2000, 2100 to 2150. Like it just sat there, and it was a little, and it's funny. Look at this chart here. It almost looks like, what am I talking about? It felt so low, but so where was it? So in October, it was, okay, so it was in the 16. Okay, so it was a little lower than I thought it was, but it went to 2000, 2100, right. And it felt like it just crabbed. It's funny. I guess that just shows you of people who love ETH, like us, like that. Even though, like, I'm looking now at this 3-month chart, let's just break it down to 90 here. It's had a nice steady incline up, but it felt, I guess, comparing it to Solana and Bitcoin, it felt like a total crab because the ETH
Yeah.
Bitcoin ratio has, what was it? 24-month low, I believe.
It was a 32-month low as of 2 days ago, or yesterday. It hit a 32-month low.
Yeah. So,
So,
that ratio, when Bitcoin's going from 20 to 40 and ETH's only going from, 17 or 18 to 22. Yeah. It's not keeping pace with Bitcoin. But Disco, you noticed something. So what happened with, like you said, we can learn so much just from the fake hacked SEC pump, but what's happened in the last 24 hours with ETH now that we know Bitcoin's about to be on the precipice of the ETF.
last time I checked, it was up 8%. So people are talking about, is there an inevitability of people cycling from Bitcoin into Ethereum, with that being next in line with a potential May approval date for their cycle of ETFs? And you wonder, because you saw Bitcoin go up, I want to say like 81% versus Ethereum's 41%. And we have these conversations offline, and we also do them on the show, of like, what's real in terms of narratives, what's being kind of fed through,
Solana.
whether it's VCs or influencers, and how this all happens. And you look at something that does have more decentralization at its core, although I understand the arguments could be made with how much is in Lido and is in these other things, like how decentralized Ethereum really is. But it seems like there's a big amount of people that are going to look to kind of switch, and then hopefully, for Ethereum folks, we could see a significant rise that would hopefully mirror, the 16 to 48 that we've seen in Bitcoin. So that could be the next chapter, which would be pretty exciting for a lot of people that were kind of sitting there like, okay, I hear everyone's talking on these other things, but Ethereum's still doing what it's doing. They're developing out the L2s. And when you get a user experience where you don't understand that you're even using L2s, and it's kind of underneath it all, like, I think that's going to be a really exciting time, because I do at my core believe that there's a lot of really extremely smart folks that are developing some really cool things on Ethereum, and I think that it will have its time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the counterpoint to that, though, is especially for May, I feel I see this as starting over. And one thing that ETH has that Bitcoin doesn't is its proof of stake, right? Which in itself doesn't matter, but it's got staking and validating. And I know, the Lizzie Warrens and the anti-crypto brigade don't like that stuff at all. So it will be interesting how, as a solo validator and a staker, and a happy solo validator and staker, it's been great in the last 6 months. Like, that creates, for an ETF, to me, that could make things more difficult. I'm not saying from a, ultimately an ETF would get the ETH and literally just start staking it, so it almost compounds in itself, and pass that value to you, and just have your 0.25% fee, just like Bitcoin does. In reality, I suspect, unless there's lawsuits and court cases, that there may be kicking and screaming from the SEC yet again, and they may try not to approve it because of that, because they don't, I think cryptography is under siege from the US government, because they don't like the privacy. They want eyes on everything. And I think Ethereum creates a potential snag there, and they may want to get rid of, whether they can successfully or not, I don't know, but get rid of like the staking or validating, which obviously is what, in my opinion, ETH's greatest asset, to be a single person, a little minnow out there with just a little nuck to validate transactions on Ethereum. In fact, this morning I got I proposed 2 blocks just this morning. I've proposed like 5 in the last 6 months, and I just proposed 2 this morning. So A, hats off to me, but B, like, it's an annuity, and I don't need an ETF for that annuity. But if even if an ETF had no staking involved and it was just ETH, being a deflationary asset with some of my retirement money, it's either that or another dumb mutual fund or some other thing that I cringe when I click the buy button. Like, of course I would put ETH in there, but I think it's a tougher road that people think.
I understand where you're coming from. I also think that looking at things from, I don't know the history really of the SEC and how the approach is. I've really just focused on it since Gensler's been in the position, and kind of looked at it that way. But the other thing that's important for us to kind of pull back and look at as we look at the year overall is we are heading into an election year. So we are in an election year, and we have the first caucuses like in less than 7 days. And we talked about it a couple episodes ago, and it's something that I think we really should keep a really close eye on, is how is crypto and how are the 52 million holders going to stand up or be represented or impact, the election? And what role is it going to play? Because, we really do, if you really do think of 52 million people holding it, people at this point that are holding crypto are probably pretty big believers because they had to jump through more hoops to be able to acquire it and be a holder. How will that group potentially impact the political structure and powers that be moving forward? And I just think that that's not enough people are kind of talking about that in my mind. And it's something that I want to pay more attention to and understand. Like, will there be more moves to motivate, people to vote in certain ways? Will it become a issue that's brought up? Will there be candidates that, fully embrace or fully go against? And how all that's going to kind of play out, I think will be quite interesting to see as we, kick off a year that is going to lead to a really crazy time, in November, October. It's going to get just,
yeah, I think really, a lot of people are in crypto are one issue voters for sure. So, I mean, that will have an impact, but more importantly, I think with the alleged approval of this ETF for Bitcoin, I think that all of the Elizabeth Warren army and brigade, like if people have this ETF and they have some of their wealth in there, the more people that get on board with that, the more they're going to look at those messages as just out of touch and antiquated. I don't know. Like, politicians never surprise me in doubling down on things where they're just tone deaf, but to me, it seems like it would quell down and you would not want to make that a red versus blue thing. Obviously, with Elizabeth leading the blue charge on this anti-crypto army in conjunction being written with the banks, which is just an absolute joke, and the Republicans being more in general for crypto. But it just seems to me like it's a nonpartisan issue and it'll fizzle out. But what do I know?
Yeah.
What do I know?
I'm just saying, you look at who gets appointed and who gets into these different positions and how things roll out, that, the whole dynamic and tone could shift significantly, because things change relatively. They move slow on some respects, but they can also change pretty quickly too if there's different people who are at the helm of certain organizations and operations.
Well, that's true. I mean, if you have if Biden Harris win again and you have a full Democratic Senate and House, that would be the worst thing, certainly for crypto, because then they would be able to, unless some Democrats are on board with crypto, which some are, they would be able to pass some of these. They always put names on there like protecting you, the citizen, first and foremost act. It's just like, oh, yeah, they're protecting me. It's in the name, and everything.
I love the Patriot Act.
Yeah, which is basically a surveillance act, right? So, yeah, if it was all, I mean, the best thing that can happen, I hate to say it for crypto, is a house divided, right? Where Senate is one, House is the other, just like now. So things are gridlocked and you can't force it through. There's nothing for a president even to sign. So
it could be interesting if there is any direct fallout to yesterday's fake announcement. I've seen some, calls from, I don't know the specific senators, but some being like, hey, we need to, understand what happened here. And there needs to be some accountability. Like, who knows? Maybe there could be, a change in leadership in some of these organizations and operations.
Yep. Well, politicians are just actors too. Like I said, what made me salty is in our industry, like there's so much infighting going on, and it's true. Obviously, it has been forever at the highest levels in politics. But like it's all performance art, right? The people who are pro crypto are gonna make a big deal about it, and they should. But I mean, hacks happen every day, and if it gets approved today, it will just be yet another weird little twist in the river of this whole thing going down, right? But
yeah,
I don't know. To me again, like I said, my fuse is short for all the theater today, because it just seems like everyone's yelling across the aisle at each other and nobody's listening and trying to figure stuff out.
And you're referencing some of the more stuff that's going on within some specific communities and, kind of some of the stuff in some of the different spaces that you're involved with. Not like, we're not talking Democrat, Republican.
No, I'm talking, well, yes, but I'm talking all of it. But yeah, I'm talking in crypto. There's so much infight. I mean, let's just get into it. I mean, so let's look first at Bitcoin, NFT volume, because it's absolutely insane. Like Ethereum used to dominate volume, and granted, remember Bitcoin or BRC20 tokens get lumped in, so the numbers aren't quite so big, but there's no mistake that Ordinals volume is absolutely off the charts insane, and it's now more than double Ethereum. Ethereum still slightly ahead of Solana, so it's pretty big. It's coming in the last 30 days, 889 million for Bitcoin trades versus Ethereum's 319 million and Solana's 307 million. And obviously all of that was led by there's Bitcoin puppets, I think, which I don't like the art. It looks kind of silly, but Node Monkeys was the big story in late December and early January. I mean, I was out of town the whole time. I had a couple. So I was in town. I did the Dutch auction. They did an amazing job of the Dutch auction. And then I went out of town and I would have snapped up a bunch more, but the price went pretty meteoric for 6 days. And now it's cooled and hit the brakes big time. So, there's just within the Bitcoin ordinal space, just like the Ethereum space, I feel like there's almost just like groups kind of battling, but the founder of Node Monkeys, who I've never had a problem with, I think they or whoever did a great job with this release. They did a great job with the Dutch auction. And, there's people calling out the founder. They're calling out this Raktoshi guy for, it doesn't even say, it just says that, he did shady things and he intimidated me, but there's no, and this is from kind of the other camp that is heavy into these Bitcoin puppets and all these other NFTs. It's almost like there's two camps of NFTs, and I think just the infighting is silly, but the so far the claims are founded in nothing and kind of baseless, and it feels like he's attacking Node Monkeys because Node Monkeys had a very successful launch. And, we saw it in Ethereum, and it's happening in Bitcoin too, where something successful comes out, this group of influencers wasn't involved at the floor for it. There's internal fights and probably old relationships that went sour. And, if it does well and the big influencers in Ordinals didn't have a say in it, then they just crap all over it. And that's what this feels like, but who knows, maybe he'll come out with more information. But, Raktoshi has been nothing but above board. I don't have a ton of interaction with him, but I thought, I don't even know if he has anything to do with No Monkeys, but I think there's just so much fighting, and it's silly because there's, like I said, there's a bigger game to play, and with all these approvals and with what's going on in Capitol Hill and obviously not everyone can involve themselves in that, but it gets old because the art on Bitcoin, we went through a whole show on ordinals and on,
Yeah.
on how cool it is with rare sats and recursion. And I mean, parent child, there's so much stuff that Ethereum doesn't have. Everything on Bitcoin's on chain. And
Yeah.
you just want to see people, everyone doesn't have to be fully aligned, but you want to see more people aligned. So yeah, that's certainly part of it, but the volume speaks for itself. Ordinals is here, and it's only going to get bigger. And I think personally, Ordinals, I don't want to say it's going to just continue to overtake Ethereum, but I think it could emerge and stay as the number one player, because this is on chain. It's inscribed on a sat for eternity as long as Bitcoin lasts.
Side note, but somewhat funny note, in the aftermath of the head fake yesterday, somebody inscribed the Gary Gensler SEC.
No, I saw that.
So that's kind of funny, but it does kind of show the acceptance and, of ordinals within the space, and, people understanding kind of that value structure of, hey, if I do this on there, it's going to be there forever, and it's going to be on chain, and I can capture that as a moment in history. So I know when we first did that show, I was really trying to learn and absorb, and my big takeaway at the end of it was, wow, this really does have a lot of value propositions that are unique, and it would be really interesting to watch, kind of how it grows. And I know that, we did that show maybe 3 months ago or something like that, and then it felt like the ordinals went a little quiet for, a month or so, or, maybe a 6-week thing. And then it just seems like, there's a big parade going on right now. And I think that Node Monkeys ushered in, kind of an era of acceptance, and, they really did it in a great way, from what you were saying with the auction. And there's just seems like there was a lot of credibility lended to that platform and protocol overall. And it's just kind of crappy to hear that, the same kind of murkiness and, kind of, daggers in the back play could happen still, instead of being like, dude, let's just get behind this. This is cool. It's new. There's enough room for everybody.
Well, or you know what? Don't get one. Like, who cares? Like, nobody's forcing you to buy anything. Like, just don't get one and move on. Like, just all the
sit it out.
But that's what in crypto Twitter, who knows? Maybe there's orchestrated groups like fighting just to get ordinals more attention. Like, I'm not saying that's the case, but who knows what's going on? It's just, I'm tired of the influencers, because they have such a strong say. We saw it in the Ethereum ecosystem, and now we're seeing it in the Ordinals ecosystem. And it's just like, there's so much good art out there. There's so much interesting stuff. We need more independent voices to curate and find that stuff, and just ignore all the douchebags that are out there, because there are so many. It's tiresome.
Yeah. And it's annoying because there's so many, and the ones, they feed upon, the audience feeds upon itself and the algo and everything. And I'm not sitting there like, oh, the algorithm. But bottom line is, those voices get traction, and there's not really a gauge or filter as to what those voices are saying, as opposed to whatever their motivation may be. So that's where kind of the whole frustration lies. I know that we've kind of talked about it over the weeks and months of, like, there isn't necessarily like a verified news source for this space, where it's like, okay, this is the one place that you can go to and get a handle on how, exactly what's going on. For example, right now today, where would be the one site or the one outlet you'd check to see if the ETF was approved, or where it's at with that, and who would you trust the most? And seeing some of these other sites being like, hey, our news is generated from AI searches, and then,
hey, you're talking about Decrypt, who just partnered with a rug, and both of us, like, we like Decrypt news, and now that's partnering with a rug. Like, that's an influencer network from Twitter, and interestingly, the other thing, while Node Monkeys was kind of being dumped on by, this person, he was more attacking just someone prominent in the ordinal space. On top of that, a lot of the Ethereum influencers were jumping in, and on the Node Monkey kind of down bandwagon. Node Monkeys got up to almost point 0.3 floor, and now it went down quickly yesterday to, now it's at 1 point or 0.173. And you know what? Like, this is a brand new collection. Who cares? And I don't care to pump my bags or not pump my bags. I've got some of these things, but it's more just seeing, like, it's funny that the big Twitter influencer gangs coming over and they're kind of siding with a certain Ordinals gang, and there's so many more of those voices than the smaller voices on the other side. So it's just, like I said, it's just, I don't even want to say I'm disappointed. We just want news and that's why we're here, to provide at least the most nuanced take we can, trying to distill all the BS and crap that's out there. It's funny. You said, we need a verified news source. Like, I would say pre-COVID, like, we all with mainstream media kind of fell for that. And like there's certain news outlets we trusted more than others. And I think now so many of us post-COVID have to be like, we have to figure out, all that critical thinking we supposedly learned in higher education. Yeah. You have to figure out now, like, what's this person's angle? What's the news? What are they reporting? Who's reporting it? Who's in bed with who? And it's exhausting to try and figure it out, but that's why we're here.
And it's especially exhausting when you're from our generation, right? So we were brought up on, like, hey, you can trust what's going on with the evening news or whatever it is. And I think that, like, Gen Alpha and, my kids, like, they already understand that they have to, filter and verify what they're being fed and why they're being fed it. So it's just kind of indicative of that. One thing that you brought up, that one thing you kind of touched on that I was thinking is an interesting lesson as a collector too, to go back to, is if you really like the art and you really like a project, there's not that many projects that if you miss the mint or you miss the initial part, that there not going to be an opportunity to potentially come in and collect what you like at a decent rate. Right. So I've been watching, the Node Monkey side of it. I've been watching the Inscribed Peppies and some of that stuff. And it's like, those are still on my shopping list, and there's no reason that I can't acquire them at the right time at a price that I feel comfortable with, because, it does, up and down quite a bit. So it goes back to that kind of FOMO filter. It's like, dude, you don't have to get caught up when the influencer, ship is in the harbor and they're all pushing it right then. It's like, pull back, wait a little bit and see how the dust settles, and give it, 30 days. And most of the time you'll probably be able to get a decent entry point on something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I would say that's mostly true. I mean, you go back with autoglyphs or chromie squiggles, or like, you getting in early, or CryptoPunks, obviously getting in early did matter. Now, does it still matter? I think, now with, I don't know, what are we at, 40, 50 million Ordinals inscriptions, obviously the narrative of the first inscriptions, that's obviously gone. The first recursive inscriptions, that's gone. The first collections on uncommon sats, that's gone. So they're, they're doing like a rare sat parent with, uncommon children and Bitcoin Ordinals, which I'm sure to some of you means nothing. But like, so there's other games you can play or inscribing on old vintage sats. Like, most of those stones have been overturned. More can do it. I think now you get good artists who mix using sat rarities and recursion or whatever that fits the mold of the project that they're working on. And I think there's cool stuff there, but that's more getting into art collection. But, you could do it with PFPs as well. And, Node Monkeys, like their inscription, 83,000 to like 110,000, I think. So, they inscribed last February and just sat on them for 9 or 10 months, which is pretty impressive. And the marketing campaign they did, like, it wasn't perfect, and they wanted to donate money, and the people they wanted to donate to, the Ordinals Foundation, didn't even want to take it. So it's like, I don't know. I just, there's so much cool stuff. The door is closed on the most obvious ones, but a smart artist could come could come in to Ordinals and really do something cool, especially if you have an existing base already. And if you are out there and are a good artist, like the London Police, like come talk to us, because we can probably help you launch the right way.
Yeah. Side note, but there's a artist, Young and Sick, that I've talked about, in the past, and I totally, really love the work. And I had a NFT, or I have some NFTs of his, and he did a David Bowie collection on a David Bowie special day or whatever. And this was the first time that I ordered something that he was promoting on Twitter, and it was a straight just IRL piece, and it showed up the other day. And there was something really cool about the tangibility of having like the printed out piece, because I'd only experienced his art digitally up to this point. But then when it came and I was like looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's going to look so awesome right there.
Yeah.
And, so there is something, about seeing how this art develops and seeing if there's, how they can work together, with kind of the physical pieces as well as the digital pieces. And it was just kind of an interesting thing to get in the mail that I forgot I purchased. And I came back, I was like, yes, this thing's awesome. And it was just seeing someone who's more of a native digital artist, seeing the output in a physical piece was pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, having, as you were talking in your last one, my mural's about to go to sleep, so I switched the art on there. But like you said, there's digital art is cool, but I love being able to display digital art on my back wall. But there's nothing that takes the place of real art. I mean, my mom was I don't want to say she was like a master art collector, but she loved collecting art and buying stuff. And the older she got and the more stuff became available online, she was looking at people all over the world who just did sketches, and she had so many cool things. And, obviously I grabbed a couple of them after she passed, rest in peace, Mom. But it's just that there's something magical about putting a piece of art that you just love to display for all who come over on your wall and for you and your family to see it. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. But just to go back to that, I think that the foundation of opportunity with the inscriptions and with the Ordinal platform is just sitting down to breakfast in terms of the capabilities. So like you said, yes, there's the, kind of more obvious nuts and stones to take in the very beginning. But as more people start understanding how to use kind of the multi-layer aspects of it and all these different things, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for people to really create some dynamic stuff that I'm going to be paying attention to for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully we can, like you said, help them do it, because I think a lot of people are clueless in how to launch it, and they go on channels like VV where you have a Web2 login or.
All right. I know we were talking about, cranky Chicago, but I'm going to get a little cranky on the VV stuff, because it's like, what am I doing with this thing? I was all pumped up.
Everybody get cranky on me. I'm like, oh, okay.
No, I'm saying I'm going to get a little cranky if we're going to talk VV, because I got up for the big mint and I collected the freaking collection, and I'm like, great. I have to go into the app on my phone and move over to look at this, and I can't do a damn thing with it.
Yeah.
And,
for those of you who don't know, VV, before you go on Disco, VV is a website that curates art for people. It's got a login. It supposedly is on chain, but it really isn't. So it's a website that you will never visit that curates art that you will never see,
that you can collect and keep only there.
Right. It defeats the entire purpose. It's like you can put it on any wall as long as it's in our warehouse.
Yeah, and you can take a look at it in my it's anyhow. That's so frustrating to me, because I was checking it earlier, like I was looking at something else, and then I'm like, oh, I got to check on that, and I was like, dude, I can't stand this. I can't do anything with it. And the frustrating part that we talked about before is Coca-Cola's falling for it. All these companies are being kind of told that, hey, this is the way to do digital. What do they call them? Not digital collectibles, right? Because they don't want to use the NFT name, and they don't want to have anything to do.
And I'm fine with that name, digital collectibles. Like NFT is a terrible name. We all know it. I think Ordinals and Inscriptions is a beautiful name. Like I said, cave paintings on a wall etched into eternity. But yeah, digital collectibles, like if NFTs, or if the whole industry turned in and it was just called digital collectibles, I'd be good with that. But siloed on one wall in one place called VV, yeah, no thanks.
No, but you can't you can't call something a collectible that you own if you can't take it home with you. So it's like a rentable. Like, it makes no sense to me at all. Like,
Right.
I
Hey,
don't.
look at this picture I own on this website that they
And
own.
which leads to the whole other thing that's brewing in disco subconscious, which is, I really want to understand more, and I'm going to challenge myself to understand more about the current and upcoming opportunities for displaying, NFTs and digital collectibles in the coolest way. Like, I'm in search of kind of that perfect gallery experience. I know that, we did that class with 6529, and there was some pretty cool outputs that they put together, and I've done I went to like a record release party in that metaverse, and that's my big charge. Like, I think by the end of this year, it'd be really cool to really have a good understanding of, like, you have this awesome collection. I see the stuff on the frames behind you and everything. I'd like to be able to, on my own, go and really kind of just spend some time and look at, what other people have collected and get inspired and really have that feeling and be able to kind of curate and do the same thing. So I'm excited to kind of watch that stuff develop a little bit more.
I mean, beyond on cyber, what have you discovered?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
no, not really. And I think on cyber is pretty cool about it, but I just want to know, like, is that getting enough like, how can we get it so that there's kind of one point? Cause I think that'll be a real magical moment when it's like, dude, I want to go kill, 5 hours instead of doom scrolling or whatever. I want to go get inspired by what other people have collected and what other people have put together and how they, lay it out in their space and how they use music with it, or how they use, how is it just, you just put kind of your one collection together, or you kind of spread them out. So just kind of the curation side of it. I think we need kind of the payoff from, all these people that have all these cool collections. Like, I'd love to be able to experience that more.
Okay. Well, follow up, and it sounds like a deep dive to me.
Yes, indeed.
What else
has it gotten approved yet?
No, it's not until after the market closes. We got 3 or 4 more hours, I think.
Okay. What else will we talk about? Oh, we could talk about a follow-up from our first show, which there's been some news from the Azuki community in the last couple of days. One of the things that we just saw happen was Chiru, the parent for Azuki and Beans, announced that they did a deal with an acclaimed anime director. I think best pronunciation is Goro Taniguchi, but tell me I'm wrong, please, and feedback in the notes. But it's interesting because that was what we kind of called for in the first episode we did, which was a very deep dive, just kind of on all things Azuki and the progress to date and where things are at. And we did kind of hope that they would come up with a strategy or a plan and start executing it and moving towards it. And it looks like this could be the start of something. And I know we can talk timelines on if it's fast enough, or if it's working quickly enough, or if it's going to be the right outcome. But there was progress on that front, and it did lead to some movement on the floor price as well. So it's interesting to see some signs of life coming from that community, and we want to keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. I mean, Dentsu, their ad agency is I used to come from that world, and I know in a way you did too. And I think that's one of the top 3 or 4 ad agencies in the world. So they're partnering big. They probably saw what Pudgy Penguins did by kind of lapping them and actually doing real world stuff. And I think Azuki's always done parties really well. I think the team is smart, but my thing from the beginning was like, build the storyline any way possible. And your community is so smart and creative. Like, all you need are guardrails. Like, what's a spirit? What's a red? What's a blue? Who are these people? And then, you create A+ stuff, hopefully with this guy, whatever his name is. But then the community can build on top of that. So, there's rumblings too. Zagabon always talks in these cryptic codes, but it sounds like
it's like parables of some sort.
Yeah, but it sounds like some sort of token is going to be launched. And, for me, like, Elementals was a flop. You went from 10,000 Azuki to 30,000 with Elementals and 50,000 with Beans. That's too much art. It can't really support much. The Spirit DAO, like some of those people are holding such massive bags. Like I said, if you're holding a lot, you can't get rid of it. You're locked in because you could trickle sell some of them to offset some losses, but that's about it. But you're hoping for the home run here. For me, a token drop, I don't know, is ApeCoin. Like I never got into that. I think it did really well for a while and they have people like running it, but I think ApeCoin's gone up, it's gone down. But to me, like what's the long-term value of a coin to, because some people are talking about, is Azuki going to bring a bigger community of collections in and kind of be the big kind of headliner for this token, which I think would be a massive mistake. They should stick to their own ecosystem. But again, like you got to stick. What kind of a collector are you? And I'm going back to my thesis, which has gone fully away from utility tokens, because utility, you're at the long-term mercy of people producing cool stuff. Now, if this anime is timeless, like Cowboy Bebop and some of those, then, Azuki could be a name brand and they could keep growing it. And the OG Azuki collection would probably be worth something because that's where it started. I think that's your best shot. But until really the U.S. securities laws change and you can actually own a piece almost like a stock and share in the profitability and not just through proxy by owning a picture, I just think utility right now it's not impossible, but it's a pretty big dead end. So I want to see Azuki succeed. I still own an Azuki and some beans, rooting for him. I've been there since the beginning. This is definitely a step in the right direction, but why are we 2 years after launch, like getting the announcement? Like, come on, let's go.
That's fair. So that brings up like the beauty, and I'm going to go back to it, of like the model that Blau's doing and investigating just with the Royal and, that whole program of being able to actually have, as we've talked about, the annuity aspect of a percentage of the royalties of a piece of art moving forward. And if they're not able to bridge and make it that clear, then I think utility is a big gray area. And I'm coming to your way of thinking on that to a degree. Ordinals overall are pretty much not utility based, right?
That's a good question. Yes, that is an accurate statement for the most part. Some, I think, are trying to have utility. Node Monkeys was like, no utility. No, and I'm like, sign me up. Like, no utility. Right. I don't want utility. Give me a collectible and let the narrative, like, CryptoPunks, let it create its own narrative if one exists. If not, there's no risk. So there's not any utility baked in, because that just to me puts a premium inflation on the price immediately, and then they've got to deliver on this hyped up stuff. So yes, you're right. Ordinals generally, some try and have utility, but I don't follow those at all.
And then just as of right now, ApeCoin's at $1.36. So that hasn't really rocketed at any point. So I don't know. I don't think the token's the answer for, Azuki, in my opinion. I think they should put their heads down and keep sticking to trying to create some content that, can create more of a community and a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking at it for a year. So ApeCoin, what you said is $1.36, and it peaked at $6. So I'm sure a lot of people made money in there. But I guess if their whole other deeds and that whole ecosystem comes out, then maybe something cool. But again, you can only have so many Grail holders who are going to get all the spoils and have the best real estate. And then everyone else, how do you keep hundreds of thousands of people, which you need to sustain a really good multiplayer game? How do you keep them engaged and sustained for years and years? I mean, we haven't seen much about that, or maybe there has been in a while, but I just, to me, to pre-sell land digitally is just like the ultimate, like, hey, here you go. Like, here's your pickaxe and your sifter. Like, go find that gold. Like, I want to be the pickaxe guy. I don't want to be the I don't want to be the guy who's the 40,000th in line going out west to find, either gold or pyrite, fool's gold. So,
Well, with those utility based communities, right? Like one thing that I learned from going to the Azuki party is that there's a whole side of it where it's really managing the different status of the different holders, right? So you had the spirit holders getting a completely different UX and completely different treatment. And then you had like beans holders that were like excited that they were able to use that to
right.
get in. And it's just, so then you're really looking at managing, people and, and getting into managing egos and all that sort of stuff. And it kind of gets away from the elements of just collecting and people collecting things that they appreciate and enjoy and believe in. So it kind of gets into a whole more bureaucratic, system to a degree.
Yeah, for sure. I think that would be extremely hard to manage because obviously you've got 97 spirits in the Azuki out of the 10,000 collection. So, that one's easy. They're the VIPs, right? But then there's all the grails below it. And, I think they had a dinner for like the people who are very active. So, okay, they checked that box. But then what about those of us who own a bunch of Azuki who aren't in that? Like, should we be equal to beans? Like, obviously I don't care. I just, like, for me it was fun to go with you for the experience, just to kind of be a fly in the wall and see the whole thing. But if you're a holder, what incentive would you had from the party perspective to hold a bunch? You wouldn't. You'd have incentive if you just wanted to be able to go to the parties. You'd literally just hold one bean if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and then the way like elementals was dropped, or how it was airdropped, it wasn't necessarily, I'm sure there was something going on that I don't understand, but it wasn't an equivalency of kind of the rarity of what you were in the mix for the elemental drop based on what you had from the original collection. So it's just, it gets it gets somewhat political probably, and it just, there's a lot of managing people, and once you get into that, that's why I'm more comfortable working and operating in this sort of space where I don't have to, have people report to me and report to other people and all that. But it seems like that sort of structure comes into play more if you're looking at that sort of operation.
Yeah, that's again, no utility to me is the best utility. Like
Yeah.
don't, obviously in the crypto punk world, some punks are, that's an interesting collection because a lot of punks, quite frankly, aren't that good looking or attractive, right? So you've got your floor with certain traits like the spots or the pock marks or whatever, just to think of one. But at the end of the day, a CryptoPunk holder is a CryptoPunk holder, no
Yeah.
matter what you have. And and obviously the seed phrase one, the seven trader or the aliens or the apes. Yeah. I mean, those are, and the hoodies too, obviously through 6529 and some of those other guys has laddered up to be a premium one. But I don't know that they have their own chat groups that they've created themselves. The utility didn't have to be created and managed by the actual company. So for me, it's like, I'm not looking 2 or 4 years out. I'm looking like 10 or 20 years out. Like, is Chiru Labs going to be around in 10 years? I think they probably will be actually, but are they going to still be able to create this awesome utility? Like at some point, the devs want to go do other stuff. Like people want to
Yeah.
start their own projects. They made a ton of money with Azuki, probably tens of millions each for the founders, right? At least. So at some point, like you want the nice bungalow in Hawaii, the ski chalet in Vermont, and you want to start your own project and be the head of your own thing. So again,
Yeah. No, I think that I know we've gone. I brought up the point. Well, you know what? It takes a while to build a lifestyle brand and do all that, and you kind of push back a little bit. And there is a point on the pushback, which is brands have their moment to shine. Like it's of the right time, and that's all that has to kind of click and be relevant. And when you start losing years at a time, or 2 years, 3 years, the spirit that pulled people in initially you don't know if that's necessarily the currency or relevancy at that new phase of, the development of culture. So you do have to kind of hit when the iron's hot, and it's hard to prolong kind of the energy or the juice of being really buzzy on something, because we all know people's attention spans are short, and there's always something new and shiny.
Yeah, there's a new drop that you FOMO into, and then you find a new group, and then, hey, you were a regular Azuki holder. You had kind of a cool looking floor that you liked, but in this new collection that's kind of taken off, like you've got the equivalent of a spirit or a fire hair, fire eyes, fire sword, or whatever, and all of a sudden you've kind of laddered up your status. So yeah, nothing's permanent. I will say, I don't follow as many Azuki as I used to, just because I'm trying to keep my timeline filled with more macro stuff and things that we discuss on the show. But the Azuki community, especially after you bought your MFer, like the MFer community is still a tight community, but the Azuki community is still, I would say, I would have given it to MFers. Now I would probably give the tightness of community to Azuki. Of the lot that I'm familiar with, because they have always been more than welcoming to new people, and the core Azuki holders, like the ones I like the most, they're still there, and they're along for the ride, boom or bust. They want to see, they love the art, they always have, they love the spirit of the whole thing, and they want to see they've been a part of this great experiment from the beginning, and they want to see what happens.
I'll say my experience with MFers, and the one thing that I will say that is very credible in my opinion is when I come across other MFers, like I do feel aligned with the spirit. I wouldn't, and I'm not the sort of person that would necessarily be like, hey, come on in, welcome. It's like, it would feel a little disingenuous. So I think that it still is, I think it's a very good alignment. And it took me a while to kind of figure out what would be kind of aligned and make sense to me. And I have nothing but positives for collecting that and being associated with it. Always, whenever I see them pop up on my feed, I'm like, yeah, dude, that's kind of a cool thing to say. I get it. So you get aligned with the spirit, and it doesn't have to just be, everyone jumping in and being like, oh, we're apes.
Yeah. Well, and they're under 1 ETH, and they're CCO, which I love. It's just, like anybody could take your MFer, put it on a t-shirt or start a coffee company with your MFer, which I know some people are like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? It's just like nouns, but that open source spirit to me is just super cool. Like, and CryptoPunks should be absolutely CCO. And I get why Yuga wouldn't. If I owned Yuga, had a big success with Bored Apes, maybe I'd do the same thing. And they gave IP rights to the holders of the CryptoPunks, but to go CCO with CryptoPunks, I think would be, I might eat those words, but I just think in the spirit of the art, that would be like, just set them free. Just do it. Set them free.
Yeah.
So anyone can use it for anything and display it anywhere. And those 5,000 to 10,000 people who hold the private keys and actually own one of those, like, great, you're along for the ride, and you're the key holder, and take that for what it means. So.
Yeah. Speaking of which, have we checked in on nouns at all recently?
Nouns has been interesting. I've been watching it. So they've had, we talked in the last show about the third fork, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been 3 forks now. So the arbitrageurs, one little cute little PFP is minted every day, and people bid on it. And, just in the first fork, they were going for 35 ETH. And then it was like, I think it was in the mid 20s for the second, after the second fork. And now after the third fork, we're down to like 7 ETH. So the treasuries below 6,000 ETH, right? So what is that, like 12 million plus bucks? I'm just doing quick math there. I think that's right. Yeah. I don't think it's 120 million. But the winning bids are now 7. So you're every time these arbitrageurs group, they buy a noun every day, they stack up, and then they split with their share of the treasury, and that number keeps going down because remember the treasury keeps lending on different things, but also because the treasury keeps getting eaten down, the amount goes lower. So I reached out to Brennan. We were talking about a bunch of other stuff, and I just asked him, I'm like, where do you think this settles? He's like, dude, I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to see when the arbitrageurs are gone, what the bids are. I suspect you might see some days where the bid's under an ETH, like where, because we're at now 975 today. So we have 23 or 4 more days because every 10th one, the nouns team gets it. So everything that ends in a 0, the nouns team gets. So basically every 9 days, 10 nouns go. So in 22 days, we're in noun 1,000. So now we're in 4-digit nouns. So I think the 3-digit nouns will carry more value. But remember, they're holding like 500 in their treasury. Like most of them are being held in their treasury. So I love the experiment. Don't know what's going to happen. I will definitely own a noun one day. That's how much I love this experiment, but I'm glad I'm a spectator and I'll get in at super low prices to be a part of it and not have bought in at 80 ETH or 100 ETH or something crazy like that.
From an aesthetic perspective, for those who are audio only, the most recent nouns, they're pretty cool looking. So, it's not like they're bringing it on that. Like it certainly seems pretty cool from that side of it. Did you ever do anything with the curling sponsorship? Did you ever do a proposal and hear anything on that front?
No, because me and the family got sick, but also we went out of town for a break. But now everyone's back in school, so I was hoping to look at it over the break, but that didn't happen. But I am going to put a proposal. But what I have been doing is reading proposals that have been executed just to see how they laid it out. But it's one of those where I know it'll take me like 5-10 hours to put this all together. So I just, excuse me, need to look and figure out how the best way to put it together, but I will be doing it.
Okay. Well, I don't know. A lot of time for every show, we like to kind of look at something positive and reflect on that. And I would kind of take a page out of what you just said and take it a little bit of a step further. And I think that it's good. And I'm very grateful that we get this time after spending time with the family and holidays. But I really like this time of year when you can kind of set intentions, kind of do a reset and kind of take stock in, what's important and what you're going to value for the year ahead. And I think it's a good process to go through for a lot of different reasons. I don't necessarily believe in resolutions, so to speak, but I believe in kind of, setting a tone. And one of the things that I'm focused on for this year is, it's a little personal, but I'll say it, is just to consume less.
Yeah.
And that's on all different fronts, from food to drink to spending to whatever it is. Just reel it in, because there's been times where I'm like, oh, I'll get that. And then I'm like, do I really need it? So I'm trying to look at things through more of a lens of, do I really need it? And try to just, have less of a footprint and just try to consume less overall and just try to simplify things a little bit more from that side of things. So I think that it's a great time to take stock in, some of the things that you're proud that you've, kind of evolved with, and really to look at the human spirit and just how incredible it is that every day is an opportunity to evolve and to learn more and to change. And there's no like timeline that you can't do that. But I know it's arbitrary that it's at the beginning of the year, but I do think it's a fun step to kind of take and to do some reflection and set some tones for what you want to do moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy anymore, and I'm not a big vision board guy anymore, but at the beginning of the year, you definitely take stock in things and what to do. I just did one of my infamous bone broth cleanses, and it's just kind of nice. It just it resets you, and it makes you maybe a little more, I always say it's almost like take a little Windex to the soul, like, so things are a little less cloudy, maybe get a lot of that sugar and drink and stuff out and just see things clearly again. But yeah, as I get older too, the more, as much as I love online, like, you gotta be present for the family, you gotta be present in real life with stuff. Like, so many of us here in this space, like, everything happens. Like yesterday, you literally couldn't unglue yourself from Twitter and your Discord groups and stuff because it's approved, it's not approved. We've all been waiting for this for so long, and it's just, sometimes at the end of the day, you take stock before you go to bed, like did I touch grass? Did I walk the dog today? Did I throw the ball? Did I, and did I just, like, when my children were telling me that story, like, and sometimes getting back in the world of a child, like, it's hard, but you've just gotta, like, sometimes it's easy to be totally present, but sometimes it's not, because you've got so much going on in this world, and so much of this world is digital, and it's like, it's not even real. Right. So
Yeah.
it's just ideas that we've all created and agreed upon, which is awesome. I mean, we're in this information age, but yeah, sometimes you just got to take a step back, and especially for those with little kids, just be super present. And my wife said something the other day that really resonated, because when the kids go to bed, we spend a lot of time with them, and sometimes, you're just exhausted, but, like,
Oh yeah.
because the what I've noticed is when kids check in, they want to check in, like, it's not always at the times you want to check in, like, dinner's ready, and like at dinner, they're like, you could tell they're, like, leaning in their chair halfway out because they're in the middle of something. But at the end of the night, for whatever reason, when you're exhausted and they're winding down, they want to hang and chat and chat and chat. And I heard from my wife and her friend that, the kids said to her, who are grown up now, like, hey, I wish you'd have spent, like, instead of just tucking me in, like, spend the time to chat. And I knock on wood, I thank goodness that I've, not every night, but I've always, like, stayed the extra time even when I was tired. And that's why naps are so important during the day. Maybe a little Earl Grey tea. Yeah, but sticking around, because I always find that right before bedtime, for whatever reason, even when they're in high school, is the time where they're just going to be chatty and open up. So you just got to meet them where they are, and maybe change your day a little and tweak it to connect with them, because the days can go slow raising kids, but the years go pretty fast.
Yeah, that's fascinating that you organically hit on that, because last night, close to midnight, I heard some scuffling in the kitchen, and I ran in, and they were both up, and it was like, we had a great hang, and I'm like, I got to wake up tomorrow. I don't know what's happening with the approval. And they're like, dude, but we had a really great hang. We had a great hang making nachos and all that stuff. So it was a great time. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have some interesting foundational news when we next get together. And as always, this show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing should be considered financial advice. We encourage you to do your own research, not to invest more than you can afford to lose, not to get over your skis, and to enjoy the time. Tune out the toxicity, focus on the positive, and try to use those critical thinking lenses as much as possible, because that's, I think, one of the most important things that we can stress on this show.
Well said, Disco. Ciao, Bella, everybody.